my name is Tim Jakes, and I am the global head of special interest groups. I have the privilege of taking you through today. So this is a really fun experience. What this is part of is the Project Success webinar series. This is an ongoing webinar series that looks at project management in many different perspectives. We look at everything from sustainability and ecology to mega projects to smart cities. So, and today we're looking at the implications of artificial intelligence in our society. So, so this is all under the umbrella of the IPMA special interest groups. So I think some of you have seen the chat already. Please feel free to use the chat, and we will do that. So for those of you who may not be familiar, special interest groups are an exploration of different parts of our world that may benefit your career, your work, the planet. So our SIG members strive to advance their industry. They create new standards and network with industry leaders and peers, and find opportunities for growth. So that's what we're all about. We are in a constant state of growth and development, and we are never arrived at our destination. We are always in transit in the special interest groups, searching for different approaches, new techniques, what's happening in project management that will help advance better solutions, better thinking, more engaged stakeholders, all of that. So it's really wonderful to be a part of that. Special interest groups cover a number of different areas. Today we have 7 of them. Artificial intelligence, of course, is one. Healthcare out of Brazil. Artificial intelligence comes from our Turkish member association. Healthcare comes from our Brazilian member association. Innovation and change is out of the USA. Smarter University is from our good friend Benjamin Kassiv out of Russia. Mega projects comes directly from the UK with Julian Denicol, Professor Julian Denicol. We have Smarter Cities, which comes to us out of the South African member association, and of course Smarter Rural, which is direct out of Spain and Mexico. And so together we've got this wonderful collection of thought leaders who are cultivating networks and bringing people together in conversation about these different topics as it relates to project management. It's really exciting. And we have more special interest groups in development. So we are always looking at what's relevant today and what more can we bring to the forefront. So it is my pleasure now to introduce to you Aco Momcilovic. Aco is the co-director and co-founder at the Global AI Ethics Institute. Aco is also an entrepreneur, owner of Future HR. So that is a company that looks at building new works for their clients in mission and vision, in branding, in organizational design, in recruitment and education. Aco, as one of his projects, is looking at national AI capital. And so this presentation today is based on a series of articles in Medium, which I hope you'll share the link to, Aco. And so today we'll hear from Aco on national AI capital, great differentiator or great equalizer. So without further ado, Aco, let me turn this over to you.
Well, thanks, Tim, for the nice introduction. Your pronunciation was perfect. Like really, it's unbelievable. I'm really satisfied and happy. So I hope that I successfully shared my screen.
You did.
And I'm going to speak in the next 25 to 30 minutes about this project that I'm working on for almost a year now. Looking at your subgroups, I can hope that it goes from the artificial intelligence subgroup to the mega project subgroup in a few years. So maybe then it will be interesting to give a follow-up if the project succeeds. So what is the National AI Capital? Well, let me start the story like this. So I was thinking, what are we talking about in the business circle and in the society in general? So what are the differences that are interesting in the last few years, or maybe even in a decade or more? So basically what crossed my mind is basically many differences that are interesting. Some of them are, for example, individual. So we can monitor when we are speaking and comparing globally about distribution of wealth. You know, how many top percenters are having what chunk of wealth in some countries. So there are famous clips on YouTube that, you know, like the gap is becoming larger, I would say. So then you can see that the countries that are having really great amount of wealth, but then very interesting distribution between the first and 1% and the last 20%. But then on the other hand, you can monitor the differences on the national level. So for example, you can monitor the size of the economies. So in this report, you can see like, okay, we have the United States, we have the China that is emerging and closing by, and all the predictions that are going to happen there. So what is interesting here in this and in some other comparisons is what is the size of the difference. So what was for me maybe even more important and interesting was the comparison of the digital readiness, for example. So you can see that the top countries and the bottom countries, they're having a different score, but the difference is like maybe 20%, 50%, 100%, 200%, depending on the methodology. One very promising and interesting slide for me also is to check the innovation capacity of a country. So you have big countries that are not that innovative, and you have some very small countries, like Croatia, for example, where I come from, that could be very innovative. So it's not connected with their size, with their approach and with some other tools and capabilities that they have. So basically, for me, it was important to get to this point. So the human capital, this is something that could be underlying factor in many differences that we are observing today. And we have from World Economic Forum also very interesting methodology that is comparing, and you can see the top countries, usually the Western countries, and you have those at the bottom, mostly African countries, and they're giving you a certain kind of profile and the taste of the capability of a country based on the human capital, on the number and education, more or less, of their people. So my question, the big question for me was, what will be the biggest factor that will create the future differences, possibly? The flip side of the question is, what could be the factor that could equalize all the countries, that can bring them all to the higher levels? And the question and the answer to that question that I proposed and discussed and kind of elaborated and researched was National AI Capital. And I will give you, of course, the definition, which I fine-tuned on the way. But before starting this project, and I also kind of approached it really on the project based, my first phase was to see, okay, is anybody thinking the same way as I am? The first question. And the second question, is this a good idea? What would other experts say? Maybe I'm just, like having something that sounds great to me, but basically it's stupid. So to answer the first question, I was searching a little bit for the global reports. Who makes them, what kind of reports, and why? So it was easy to find the reports on the artificial intelligence and their estimations from, I don't know, many famous companies. You can see here McKinsey and Company. You can see Boston Consulting Group thinking about the rise of AI. You can see the Bain, also consulting company that is famous again with the different reports on the artificial intelligence. And then the usual suspects like Ernst & Young, global review about the future, Deloitte, of course, Tech Trends, and all of them are having projects that are more or less going on a yearly basis, so they're updated frequently. And then there is the KPMG with their technology insiders. And for me, this was enough to conclude that basically, yeah, the AI could be the technology that is coming. The hype cycle, which is kind of slowly developing in the last decades. I mean, comparing to the few decades before, much faster, but still, probably, I think that we are here at the beginning of this wave of hyper cycle. So basically, then I defined, and I'll show you in which way, the national AI capital. So this is the fine-tuned definition after my research. So national AI capital is the capacity of a country to ethically develop and apply artificial intelligence and cope with different challenges and opportunities of various AI matters and its transformational impact. So what is the reason? In order to increase the country's or citizens' social and economic well-being and national competitiveness, which is a very important part, in a sustainable manner. So it has a few important parts, this definition, and this is because I took under consideration many good advices that I gathered from all around the world. So basically, the answer to my second question, is this a good idea or not? I said, okay, let's check it. So during the last summer, I started the mini project of something that I'm calling the initial global survey, and I gathered answers from 200 plus AI experts from all around the world. So basically 56 countries, and I asked them a number of questions. I'm going to share some of them and some of the answers right now. So basically, this is the continent response to say, okay, we had many from Europe, but we had Africa, Asia, South and North America altogether around 12%. So I think it was reasonably representative. So also what was interesting for me is what is the involvement of those people in the AI sector, because I wanted to have the broad and diversified portfolio of people that are answering those questions in order to get more experience. So 30% of them were owners of the AI companies or employees, 26% researchers, academics, professors from the universities, 24% developers, engineers, and we had also some AI enthusiasts and startup members who are in the artificial intelligence projects. Also, what is interesting is that they were a highly educated group of people. So 28% with a PhD, 34% with masters, and 12%, for example, with MBAs. So basically, no responders with low education. And this was the key question for me, the first key question for me to get the answer. Is it important to consider the AI capacity, which I defined in the survey, on the national level? And this confirmed to me that, like, yes, almost 90% of them told me, yes, this is like really very important thing to consider. How the countries are going to tackle this problem, what is going to happen if we don't do what is necessary to advance our AI projects and to have better chances in the globalized world. The second also very interesting question is, will countries differ in their AI capital, and even more importantly, through the answers, in what period of time? So basically, how much time do you think that we have? So 37% of them said yes, there are going to be differences, and they are coming, and they are going to be visible in a short-term period. Additional 50% said yes, we will have significant differences, and most likely in the midterm period. So it was like short-term 3 to 5 years, midterm, let's say 5, maybe 5 to 10 years. So also something to be aware of, and there are a lot of discussions on that segment. So who is going to create the AI capital of the country, and who is responsible for it? So the obvious answers, 77%, was the private companies or corporations. There was increasingly and surprisingly high level of trust in the startups, which emerged as a second, and then the universities like academia, 59%, and only 31% relied on the government and government institutions. And this is like really interesting topic itself to discuss this question. Also, I asked them a few other questions. Some of them was where will countries invest most and the fastest? So it was like healthcare, security, and finance. And on the bottom, you can see education. And it was interesting to combine with the second connected question, where should countries invest most and fastest? And then you have the healthcare on the first place, and you have education on the second place. So we have this gap between what is going to be done because of the profit, probably, and what should be done because of the society. So then after this survey, I gathered a lot of data and processed them, and I fine-tuned the methodology. It has 5 dimensions with 15 factors all together. So the factors are the human capital talent dimension, government and the politics dimension, private sector dimension, academic research dimension, and some specific additional factors that can influence overall score. So at the end of this project, I should have the ranking of all the countries in the world and their profile, which is a good grounds and basis for the future consulting, future development, and future actions that can help all of the countries around the world that are not those 9 countries who are currently developing most of the AI to get in the train, I would say. So obviously, I was checking what skills I'm going to need from the project management perspective. And I mean, there are many skills and I researched a lot of them, but I kind of picked the 2 of them. So basically, one that I can see now that really is going to be important is working with and managing remote teams, because this is global projects. I'm having contact with people from all around the world, from every continent, basically. So this is something that, yeah, I became aware that I need to develop more when building my own capacity. And the second thing, which is also kind of obvious, but it is mentioned, and it is mentioned in some articles directly as a project management skill, is the data science expertise. So I'm going to gather, and already did gather, a lot of data that needs to be processed, interpreted, visualized. So this is also something that I'm taking very seriously, either to develop myself or to have the members of the team who are specialists in this part. So I was also then kind of trying to predict what I need to be aware of and what is happening in modern project management in the projects, let's say. So there are also a few things that I kind of directly felt. So there's that complex and unknown technical situation, because I have many variables that are not known at the moment, and some consequences, of course. The second thing is also complex and unknown geopolitical and socio-political situations, which again I'm directly having when trying to run these projects, because it is connected also with the governments of different countries and with their political situation. So definitely increasingly complex regulation and governance is something that it is going to significantly influence the pace and some decisions in this project. So I was also monitoring and trying to be ahead of the time, so to kind of to be aware of trends. So there are some nice articles. I can send a link to those who are interested. Just contact me on LinkedIn or somewhere. So what are the trends? And then you can see some trends that are directly connected with my project. So increasingly, as you can see on the first one, the projects will be impacted by artificial and data intelligence today. So I said it like, yes, checked. This is exactly the trend that I can feel. So the project managers will need broader skills, from AI to EI as in emotional intelligence. And then embracing the hybrid project management approaches and teams who are becoming increasingly diverse. So this is exactly what was happening to me, and you will see it in the last few slides regarding some groups and some results that I already kind of joined. So the first 6 months of the project, I was happy to be present and called to give the lectures and present results on the 5 conferences, to publish 10 articles in 3 countries, basically regionally, to from the beginning have 8 different partners. Now the number is bigger. This is like in the first 6 months, and some scientific papers that are going to be prepared and published, hopefully in tier 1 journals. So this is like the press clipping that I collected in the few months, and I was quite happy that also this part of my project that I planned was successful. I was in general trying to partner with and plan the partnership with AI associations, with universities and research centers, with corporations and companies which could be interested in investing and supporting this project, and then again with government institutions. All of them can find me on my LinkedIn, and some of you already did. I'm very glad that we are connected, and you can read more details about the survey that I just presented you on my Medium. I have it there. I think in a few articles so far. Also, I created one small project for the students, so they could choose between researching economic indicators or gathering the data for the factors that I'm having, or just discovering and describing job roles and job descriptions in artificial intelligence area. So I'm currently negotiating partnership with a few companies, and I have certain type of companies that I want to collaborate with, but this is just for you to have the oversight that this is also kind of part of my project, that planning and future budgeting of the expenses. In Croatia, I partnered with 5 universities and I cooperated with their professors and students. And on the national level, I also has a partners, some technological institutes, the Croatian AI Association. But what was consequence of this project is that it kind of branched. I got connected with different people, as I mentioned, from all around the world, and they also, because of their interest, invited me to join some of their projects, or even to start some projects with them. So as you can see on my official title for this presentation, I'm the co-founder and co-director of Global AI Ethics Institute, which is established in Paris. The first co-founder is my partner Emmanuel Goffi, that he was the director of the Sapiens Institute, also in France, the Observatory for the Artificial Intelligence. With the institute, we also kind of partner with 3 additional organizations that are in the broader segment of artificial intelligence, and we created Alliance for Responsible AI that is handling not only the ethics part, which we are going to and be specialized, but also some other parts and angles. And also some of the members of Alliance for Responsible AI and some people from our, let's say, bigger community were invited to also get included and to involve themselves in, it is called the International Group of Artificial Intelligence, that is in the Middle East, in Bahrain, established, and also gathering people from all around the world that are working on a different segments of artificial intelligence. So this is more or less the current status of my project. It's going to be very interesting summer. I need to collect a lot more data to find even more partners, to get connected on different countries and continents, and yeah, maybe even hopefully during the summer to find some companies that are going to see the mutual benefit of creating that kind of, let's say, report and methodology for the mutual benefit. So, respecting the time frame, it's a few minutes before 2:30, so I will finish my presentation here. There are many other detailed segments from the research and many other aspects, but if some of you are interested, I will be happy to share those information with you, and of course to discuss and to answer all the questions that you might have. So thank you very much for your attention.
Great.
And back to you.
So thank you. Wonderful. Great. Well, please feel free to enter your questions into the Q&A, and we'll speak to those right away. So I have some questions for you, Atso. So this concept of the national AI sort of intelligence, right? That it's divided up by country. Why, with so much work happening internationally, and certainly code can be transported very easily across boundaries, why look at this from a national perspective?
Okay, this is an interesting question, which is partially touched in this question: who is responsible for the development of AI? So basically, when you look at the past, if we consider those things that are called like the general purpose technologies, and they're kind of influencing then the whole world. A lot of them and many big discoveries are those who happened primarily in some country. It was even funded by the government, or the fundamental research that was the basis for some technologies was inside certain country. So basically, this is also kind of the political question, but I think that countries needs to be aware that some of those projects and some of the knowledge needs to be in the country, because what could happen is that we are going just to have large corporations that are developing something, and then the countries are just the users of it, and they cannot control it. So in some segments, this is completely fine, and we are doing it with many other technologies. But in some parts, like for example the defense, you cannot have some product that is developed by some other entity. You need to be completely sure that you develop it, that is like very secure. So a lot of questions similar to that are going to be like, okay, in the country, are you going to develop it? Are you maybe not even to develop it, but what countries can develop is the capacity to apply them, because it is not only the development, but countries, if they want to get on this trend of artificial intelligence, it's not only like to educate and to have the developers. You need to have the legal framework that is allowing that. You need to have the political will, that is going to allow you to say, okay, let's be modern, let's use the tools. Because what could happen, the worst case scenario, you will have some countries that are applying artificial intelligence and have more, let's say, willingness to do it, and those countries are going to be like not 2 or 3 times better, but like 50 times better, 100 times more productive than those like less 20% of the countries which are completely ignoring the artificial intelligence. So then it is becoming, I would say, also a political question.
Yeah, and so yeah, it is very political, right? And there are business segments that are using AI now, right? There are certainly many companies out there that are driving their products and services through AI. I think of, in the US, I think of a company like Stitch Fix, right? Mm-hmm. Stitch Fix is a company where they will mail you your clothing. You get a subscription essentially for clothing, and they will just mail it to you every month. Yeah, and they do this through based on a whole AI algorithm that matches not only your preferences, but matches their supply chain to your preferences. So in that sense, there are these business uses for AI, and then there are civilian government uses for AI, and then of course defense uses for AI that probably have the highest national security risk. Yeah.
It's true. What was my concern is to have this picture. So for example, when you go to Sri Lanka, you will see that like 1 million people in Sri Lanka are employed with just picking the tea leaves. This is like their job. So this is like the lowest technical kind of job that you can have. So you can basically choose: are you going to educate your citizens in modern technologies and give them tools to be much more productive, or you're just going to give them like do some manual work, which is going to be replaced by machines in probably next decade or something like that.
Yeah.
So the countries, I think that the problem is that countries are not aware of that danger, because that danger is coming much faster than we think. And thus the question for the experts, how much time do you think that we have? And it's like, for many of them, it's like 3 to 5 years. And in the political life of a country, it's like nothing. It's basically maybe one change of a government, something like that. So they're not going to respond to this, let's say, opportunity or threat, however you see it. And we need them to do, because I remember one good quote from one speaker on one conference. He said, if regarding the artificial intelligence, if you don't act now, you don't have a future, Yeah. And this is something that I think is completely forgotten on the national level.
Huh. Yeah. Yeah, and these national policies are so important because they create this ecosystem, this legal framework, and they vary differently, right? By country, by the political makeup and the structure of the government. But it's very, very important. Say more.
It's on the national level, but even in the supranational level. So, for example, you can now check what has been done on the level of Europe. So Europe has now proposed one act that is kind of defining artificial intelligence project. So it's kind of conservative, let's say. It is respecting and aiming to have the responsible AI and kind of to assess the risks of the artificial intelligence projects, which in general is good. But what is interesting, then when you compare it to other parts of the world, United States doesn't have something like that. So basically startups who are developing their artificial intelligence in United States are going to have much less problems than those in Europe. The first thing. The second thing, you have the China, which is completely ignorant to many of those, like, let's say, values that we are having and trying to promote while developing a technological product. So it's going to be very interesting to see the frictions that are going to happen globally because of the different approaches on how to develop artificial intelligence and the adoption of people. When you're going to buy certain product, are you going to have more trust in European product or in US product or in Chinese product? So it's going to be, from the consumer perspective, very, very interesting. And in that part, you can also see and then connect this ethical perspective, which I didn't mention in my project and presentation, but is also very interesting.
So I know here in the USA, and Ilya and Mohammed, let me get to your questions here, but let me just say, in the US, just yesterday, our Congress passed a bill that was a bipartisan bill, which today never happens in the US, right? We have such great wars going on in political parties.
It was not filibustered, I guess, right?
So this one was passed. It's called the Innovation and Competition Act, and it's essentially designed to be more competitive with China. So you can see in this sense that there are these AI, and a lot of it is investment in technology, artificial intelligence, supporting an economy that is driven by new technology. So you can see how these things can become maybe weaponized is not quite the right word, but they become the thing by which countries interact with each other.
I think it's a great example, because this is exactly what's going to happen. And this is exactly the question that all of us need to ask ourselves. Is my company or my country or my continent, are we competitive enough? And what is the consequence of not being competitive enough? What is going to happen? Because, like I said, all of those general purpose technologies, they're great enablers, but also differentiators. Imagine now today having a country without electricity. What would that mean for that country? And we are currently at the stage that, in 10 years, you could have countries without artificial intelligence, for example, or with low level of adoption of artificial intelligence projects. And then somebody needs to also think about, okay, what are the consequences for us living in that kind of country, you know? And they're like broad and significant social consequences, I assume.
So let me follow up here. So question from Mahoud from Iran. Amazing presentation, loads of thanks, dear Atso. How does AI play a part in PM exactly? Is it just combining project agility and AI-powered solutions, enables PMs to process complex project data in seconds and uncover patterns that may affect project delivery? Is that sort of the use case that you see, or are there other use cases?
Yeah, I must say that I'm answering this question as a non-expert in artificial intelligence in project management. I can just answer from my, let's say, general knowledge of artificial intelligence. I think that the answer is more or less there. Probably the artificial intelligence projects are going to bring much more data to the project managers, you know, and allow them to find better some patterns and to make some predictions that were not that obvious before. But then again, we return to this only for those project managers who are going to be educated to use those tools. This is the critical part. From what I was observing in the last few years, you have all this like big data and Internet of Things, which is allowing you to get incredible information from the, let's say, production facilities, from the machines, to predict when they are going to break, when they are going to need some kind of refreshment, when they are going to order at the perfect time some new resources, something like that. So it's going, on one hand, it's going to allow and enable project managers to have much better and more precise data, but then they should be very careful to choose the smart data that and to go through all of those, let's say, woods of data that is going to be thrown at them. On the other hand, what is also, in my experience, and when I was speaking with my friends who are project managers, a lot of the work only come down surprisingly to the people, right? So like a big part of project management is communication. It's the soft skills. So basically artificial intelligence is also going to give you more data about people who are involved, who are engaged, who are providing some results. So it will kind of help them to steer the project in a better way, and maybe even to, let's say, kind of to manage it, to manage people inside of the project better. So I think that, like in every other segment, there are going to be enormous possibilities for the project managers to level up their game with the artificial intelligence tools.
Yeah, terrific. Yeah, you know, it strikes me that projects in this realm are going to become more complex, are going to become more differentiated, right? You will see non-AI powered and AI powered projects. And there's such a gap between the knowledge that one needs to be an expert in AI, or to even be operational. The math alone is very, very daunting. And so for a generalist, for a general project manager, or even a technically oriented project manager, I wonder how that gap gets bridged. How do you begin to work within that environment if you don't have that deep knowledge?
Yeah, well, I would be, let's say, cautiously optimistic about this part, because I think that we need to differentiate two things. So basically, at a certain level of maturity, we are going to have, yes, all of those things that you mentioned and expertise required for people who are developing the AI and AI products. But on the other hand, the project managers, the human resource managers, the many others, they're just going to use it as a tool. You know, if I'm looking at my computer now, yeah, I mean, I don't know basically anything about how the electrons in the processor are functioning exactly, but I'm using the tool. So basically, all of us others, we are going to get the tool, and we need to learn how to use the tool the same way that we're using the car or the software or the, I don't know, some kind of SAP software, right? So it could be a little bit easier than it seems at the moment.
So, question from Ilya: any thoughts on upcoming artificial general intelligence (AGI) ownership and the impact on wider society?
Yeah, it's a tough one. So I'm a little bit skeptical that we are going to achieve AGI in anytime soon. From what I'm reading and observing from the experts, I think that we are kind of far away from it. You know, we are not there yet. But on the other hand, I must say that, and I can recommend the book Singularity from the Ray Kurzweil, right? Very interesting. I'm lucky to have one signed copy of this book at my home.
Wow.
By him. Yeah, I got it from the United States, some strange channels. And I mean, it would be amazing to have in 2042 something close to AGI, and then to have this like exponential jump, which we cannot predict. I mean, the impact on a wider society, I can only say we really don't know. It's like completely unimaginable. Are we going to be like wiped out or kind of transferred to the computers and some kind of memory? I really don't know. I'm afraid, or maybe kind of satisfied, that it might not happen as soon as we think, you know, because reading some kind of reports and articles from the experts, I think that we have a long way to go. But on the other side, and we are doing right now a lot of interesting things with specialized artificial intelligence. And I think it's going to take us another decade to make significant improvements to ourselves, to the societies, to the jobs, to the products that we're developing, and to our countries.
Oh, great. So, question for you: what's next for your work? What's next? You know, you've got the survey, you've got these survey results and data. Where do you go next from here?
So, because of this survey and the very encouraging results, it was kind of aligned and with some other wishes. So basically, I started my PhD. So I'm now in the first third of my PhD, which I'm doing in digital economy, and then of course I'm going to do the thesis is going to be connected with artificial intelligence and national AI projects. So I'm going to kind of develop it on even deeper level. I'm also, as you can see, in the process of gathering a lot of people who are partnering with me, and I'm partnering with them on the artificial intelligence project, like the AI Ethics Institute, the Responsible AI Alliance, the global group, and stuff like that. So basically, the network is already being established. And the third part, I started, and I'm having communication with a few consulting companies that are, let's say, present internationally, like at least 80 countries in the world, who can say, okay, we want to be part of AI story and AI discovery story. We can use it as our PR, as our marketing, to deepen our specialty, and we want to kind of to invest in it. So I'm in the next year or half of the year, hopefully, I will find some partners, some investors, and I'm going to be able then to maybe even hire a few more people that are going to collect all of this enormous amount of data, process it, and then structure it in some way that it makes sense to be able to get to the final product, and that is the ranking of the countries and their profile. Because then you can come to any government in the world, tell them, look, you're here, like your neighbors are here or here. Do you want to be better? Let's talk how can we make it better, or maybe on the level of the companies also to kind of share that
what
part.
are the factors? You know, that would be a very interesting discussion. You know, what are the cultural factors, the human factors? What are the infrastructure factors that would build that economy, that national capital? Yeah.
Exactly. And the methodology is here to gather some data, but also to ask the right questions, as you just did. You know, like to make all of those things in the head, and to be aware of the people who are deciding. Like, do you have an answer for that? Are you even asking these questions? What do we need to do to be better? What we are having and what we need to have in the future?